I want to say good morning. Why? Because it is a morning, and it's a good morning. Genesis chapter 22. Abram and Isaac going to Mount Moriah. God telling Abram to bring his sons an offering. So, firstly, we praise God this morning. It's not that early anymore. It's just 7:35 here. Which is kind of for some people super early, for other people super late. But the sun is actually already up. Came up just after 6 this morning. There's a very beautiful sunrise, like this pink little dot there behind, pink circle, half circle I saw through the trees before it disappeared behind the sun. So yeah, that is a great part. Why it looks so early? It's because of the clouds. This is not the rainy season here. It's the dry season. So they say it might rain a bit later today. So because of the cloud covering above us, as you can see, the cloud covering, it does look very early. So it kind of very well fit in with the text this morning of what I'm going to teach on. The other thing I just want to mention, so why are we here? Okay, so we are on top of a mountain, right? You can see if you look behind me, okay, down into the valley, you can see other mountains, right? Now I know this is not how it looks like in Israel, not these kinds of mountains, understandably, right? I have never been there. I would like to go and visit to just exactly see how it looks like, but this is a different kind of nature, understandably, right? But mountains, different heights, okay? They have lots of hills there, mountainous kind of different heights, okay? So a bit like what we have here. And he took him up. He ultimately had to take him up onto the mountain to bring him his offering. The second reason I want to have a town in the back, right? In the scripture reading, if you watch that, you see that we were inside the town on a hill with houses very close to us. In this case, a little bit further away, right? But yeah, I wanted the whole view as well. So this is why we are here and why I'm going to teach on this chapter here. Right, so I say thanks God for giving us this kind of weather to make it look so early, and as well for providing this place that we can come here, even at present with everything that's going on in this country. Right, so chapter 22, God telling Abram. Right, so again, the reason I'm wearing this Shan shirt again this morning is to as well try to get you to see that cultures, right? Cultures differ. Okay, their kind of clothes or their traditional clothes. Not if everybody walks around like this. Very few people we will find walk around like this, but some still do. Right, there's still some people where they actually do wear the traditional clothes, and not just for that's their clothes. Right? In some countries in the world, the traditional clothes are just wear on certain days or just in certain places at certain times. They sell it, like in Thailand, they sell the Thai traditional clothes everywhere, and the tourists wore it. But basically, nobody else, no Thai person I've ever seen wearing it, right? But in this case, here in Myanmar, people still actually do, just for normal reasons, wear these kinds of clothes. Right? So I'm wearing it this morning as well to draw the focus, or to try and just get your attention that cultures do differ. And when we are looking at this whole story of Abram taking Isaac up in the mountain, you need to understand there's a time difference, there's a cultural difference between their culture and our culture. Something which would look horrible to us. I mean, how can God ask Abram to take Isaac up the mountain to offer him as a sacrifice? I mean, it sounds like, again, this idea of the God of the Old Testament. There's this evil God, and he tells Abram and other people to do these kinds of things. He's just telling, go and massacre that whole city, or he doses everybody with water and destroys the whole earth and destroys cities. And that God of this Old Testament is just evil everywhere. And so it kind of fits in with this kind of a God of the Old Testament to tell Abram to take his son up to the mountain. That is because we have the wrong view of God of the Old Testament. There's no difference between God of the Old Testament and the God of the New Testament. It's the one God, the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. God doesn't change. So he didn't change from an old evil Testament God to a new, hippie, long-haired, blue-eyes kind of God, right? With loving and kissing and whatever, hugging everybody kind of idea. No, it's the same God, right? Jonah said God is long-suffering. You see it in Deuteronomy as well. God is long-suffering, he's kind, he's patient. Old, new, is exactly the same God. So why did God tell Abram to go up the mountain? And I want to maybe today put a different theory out there, and I think you can get this from the text. I think it's actually a very important thing to look at, and I think if you understand it correctly, you might see a lot of grace again, a lot of mercy again in this. Okay, so at first glance, right, the way it's been taught in Sunday school, for example, you might think this is just evil. The way it's the atheists look at it, or other non-Christians look at this, it might just sound evil and wrong. How is this possible? Okay, how can God tell you to do? How could God tell? I mean, Abram waited for more than 100 years. Well, he waited for 100 years before his son was born, okay? But now, when he was going to take Isaac up in the mountain, he's more than 100 years old. Okay, so it is. It's how he waited so long. So how can God do something like this? God, I mean, telling an old guy of 100 years old to go on a trip for 3 days, and then take his son up a mountain and sacrifice him, bring him as an offering. Oh God, I mean, that's not a good thing. I mean, how can you do something like this, God? Poor Abram, walking for 3 days, knowing the whole time that he needs to take his son up to the mountain and kill him. Right? Doesn't mean how much faith and all. I mean, it still would have been really bad. Okay, and yeah, sure. But let's get into the culture of the day. Just want to say something before we do that. We think of Abram willing to bring his son as an offering is really evil, while as far as statistically wise in America since abortion was legalized, more than 60 million babies have been killed. 60 million Isaacs. Atheists, when you try to say God is evil, then maybe you need to look at yourself and you see yourselves, you need to see how many babies you've been killed over the last couple of decades, and America only. And I know in Russia as well, there was this time, statistically wise, when a woman would have 8 abortions per lifetime. Well, according to some, it's a lot less now, because the culture, everything, well, not so much the culture, but the political setup and everything kind of changed, right? And as well, there's now other kinds of waste protection and stuff that women won't get pregnant. But so, it's one thing to call the kettle black, right? The pot to call the kettle black kind of idea. It's not very wise. So if you, as a non-Christian, want to say God is evil by telling Abram to do this, and you have no problem to go to an abortion clinic or just take some pills to get rid of your baby. I know you don't see it as a baby, right? But anyhow, I mean, man, that is a little rich. Okay? Okay, so now let's get, I'm totally against abortion. Totally. That's murder. That's just that. Okay, so let's get then back to what is happening and trying to get into the culture. Okay, so what sounds to us very evil, let me again use this example of abortion. Okay, so for a majority of people, for lots of people, that doesn't sound, for non-believers, for atheists, it doesn't sound evil. For me, it sounds evil. Okay, so here we are in the same time zone, the same time frame, same kind of cultures, living the same time, and what might sound not evil for you, abortion, sounds very evil to me. It sounds to me it's just murder. How can you get away with it? So even now, in this kind of time, we have what certain people see as really evil and other people see as kind of normal. So now, here we need to go back to a time way back then, when what seemed to people as normal didn't seem normal to another person, for example. And bringing an offering, right? Bringing an offering to the gods, the child as an offering to the gods, was not seen, or at least it was not an abnormal practice. Lots of those faiths, and lots of those other gods, the people would bring the children as an offering to the gods. We have a volcano erupting, right? And the locals will take and bring an offering, sometimes maybe a virgin or somebody throwing this girl or a baby down into the volcano so as to appease the gods, right? The rain is not coming, Baal, not bringing, not being reborn. It's drought, there's no rain coming, so how can we get? So we need the fertility god, we need to take the fertility god, in this case not so you can have children, but actually so that the ground can be fertile. You can take a baby and you can go and offer this baby to the god, to Baal for example, so that you will get rain. So it was not an abnormal practice for people to bring human offerings, to bring children as an offering. So if you're going to look at this story then as, okay, so here God is Abram is in that kind of environment where this kind of thing is not seen as abnormal. So it might explain as well how Abram was kind of willing. I know from Hebrews, and it explains that Abram believed that God can bring him back from the dead. But in the environment he was in, he could have seen that, this is kind of the norm, bringing offerings in such a way. So that ought to have helped him. Okay, still, that does not take away from the fact that he would have been distraught. All of these people bringing the children ultimately as offerings would have been distraught. But again, you know that in those days children died very young. They were used a lot more to children dying at childbirth, a lot more than we are. For us, it's more now an exception to the rule. For them, it was the norm. So then to bring a baby that survived as an offering, a different view on life and death. Okay, like atheists look at abortion a different way than I do. Okay? So I think, and I want to show it through you, this is what my theory is basically, that what God was doing a lot more here than just asking Isaac to bring an offering. God was telling Abram as well something very important here. And this is that I'm not a God like the other gods around. I'm not like Baal, right? I don't want an offering. I don't want you to go up in the mountain and kill your children or baby and throw it down the mountain so it dies, kind of thing. I am not that kind of a God. So there's a lesson for Abram in this, and a lesson for the other people around. The other thing that is very important, as it starts dripping here, the other thing that's very important is the fact that we get this idea of Abram leaving his slaves down in the valley, that that was just Abram and Isaac up there in the mountain. Because why else would he leave them there? He wanted to be alone. Right now, I don't think that is really what's going on here. I don't think that's the reason. I think there's another reason. I think most likely he just wanted to not have them there to stop him from doing this. Right? Now, let's kind of try and look at Mount Moriah, where he went. We know that later on Mount Moriah is the place where, after David had the census, and God appeared to him and gave him the three choices of what to do concerning how to stop the death of this people. David chose kind of the shortest one of them, the 3-day one, and then there was the angel with the sword standing there on Mount Moriah. And then later on they built a temple there, the Temple of Solomon. Okay, so Mount Moriah in Jerusalem, where the Temple of Solomon was built, and we know that David that was the last city in that area in Judah that he conquered. Right, so there was a city then. And we know he renamed it Jerusalem. And Salem, meaning peace, there was the city already. Okay, and Melchizedek, that we have already seen after the fight with Lot, not with Lot, the kings, and getting Lot back from the kings. Okay, then the king Melchizedek of Salem came, so there would have been some kind of a city there. So if you put all of those pieces together, then it would imply that there were other people around. It might have been more of a public thing than you. Why other people not mentioned? Because the focus is not on the other people, right? The focus is ultimately on Abram's faith. Moses, writing down the story, is trying to show Abram's willingness, Abram's faith, how he grew from a man who was called in Ur of the Chaldeans and then moved to Haran and then stuck there in Haran for a while and then had to be called again, and then he traveled and then he went all over the place, right? How all of that happened, and why all of that happened, and how Abram then going to Egypt and then letting Sarah tell that this is just my sister, and then trying to come up with a way of getting submitting to Sarah and getting Hagar there pregnant, and then when Sarah said no, get rid of Hagar, and then he listened to her and just let her go, right? So the movement in the growth of Abram through all of this, he was really doing very bad things. But then after Ishmael's birth, how he turned, how he changed already, and he was not willing anymore. And God had to tell him. So there's this growth going. This growth in the faith of Abram. Yes, after that he went to Melchizedek again. He couldn't go to Egypt because he was a persona non grata there, not welcome. Okay, so and then again, lying about my sister, right? And now Isaac is born, and then the Hagar being, and say no way, I'm not letting Hagar go. And God had to tell him. It came after Melchizedek episode. And so the growth in Abram, and now we are at this final place where Abram is then ultimately willing to take the son of offering. So that is the focus of the story. And so therefore you can understand Moses is not focusing on other people that might have been there, because they are in that sense just bystanders. They are not the story. Abram and Isaac is the story. Abram actually is the story, not even Isaac, right? Abram is the story. That is where, because it's the focus is on Abram and the growth of his faith to get to a place where ultimately in the New Testament Paul is going to use him in Romans as an example of that salvation is through faith alone and not through the deeds. And James is going to use Abram, earlier Abram, the sinful Abram, still way back earlier. Paul used him as a sinful Abram way earlier, right? And James is going to use him here up on the mountain now, showing his faith. Okay, so there's that difference why the same Abram being used in one seemingly to show salvation is by faith alone, and the other one, works kind of idea. Okay, but we will still, when we get to Romans and James, we will get those verses and explain that. It's not a contradiction. Abram is the focus. Children of Abram, we are the children of Abram, and that is ultimately what this chapter is about, focusing on Abram. So therefore we don't, and I just want to color the picture in a little bit from the size that you can get a glimpse of something more that is happening here, not just the Sunday school version, but a little bit more. Okay, so let's start then now with verse 1.